What I don't know how to say is more important than what I do say. O que eu não sei dizer é mais importante do que eu digo. I was recording the book review at a park and I came back to the news that Ozzy Osbourne has died today. So since he's a great source of inspiration for me because of the lyrics he wrote, the things he represented, the things he defended, the authenticity of a person that existed within that human being. His music helped me get more in contact with art, really feeling it in a deeper sense. So rest in peace, Prince of Darkness. Hello, my name is Nico and I'm here at Santuário Nossa Senhora das Brotas in Pirei do Sul because this is my hometown and this is one of my favorite places in the world. It's filled with many beautiful tall araucárias and I'm here to review The Passion according to GH by Clarice Lispector. So Clarice was born in Ukraine. She was raised in Recife in the northeast of Brazil. Then she moved to Rio de Janeiro after her mother died and she was 9 years old. So she traveled often because she married a diplomat. Then she got to spend a time in Switzerland, in Italy, and in the US. She did live in Washington, but then she divorced from her husband and came back to live in Rio de Janeiro. One day when she was already older, she slept while smoking a cigarette and ended up burning herself. And she describes it being a horrible situation that she hardly recovered from. Oftentimes, Clarice is put as someone that is capable of speaking the unspeakable. You can clearly see that in many of her short stories, and some that she claims that even she didn't understand properly. But I think it's the same thing as like when Robert Plant says that he doesn't really know what was Stairway to Heaven about, because so many things can be felt and thought from the same line that you wrote at first, and sometimes you don't know what brought you to write that at first, but still it can convey so many other things along with it. Clarice was someone that was very concerned about the core of human condition, an existentialist, if you may, and her works tend to get into the nasty situation we find within ourselves. Now, The Passion according to GH. So there's a very famous interview for TV Futura. In it, she said that once an old professor from a respectable school came to her and said he read it 4 times and he couldn't understand what was it even about, like what is the point she's trying to make. And the next day, a 17-year-old college student came to her and she said that it was her nightstand book, which in Brazil translates to livro de cabeceira, which is the one that you can't keep from reading all the time because it really resonates with you. And with that, she concluded that some books are not about intelligence, but about understanding. Understanding isn't a matter of intelligence, but of feeling, getting in contact with something bigger. She doesn't say with something bigger, but I think it makes it more complete with where we are trying to get when we say this in Portuguese. So we have this beautiful bourgeois carioca woman, carioca being the people from Rio de Janeiro, that is on the top of her beautiful apartment and is everything everyone ever could want, because it is perfect, it's well decorated, it resonates with the identity of this woman. So right off the bat, her maid decides to leave the job because she's not satisfied with it. GA just doesn't understand why did the woman decide to leave, but then she realizes that she barely knew the name of the woman. She comes into the room of the maid and she expects everything to be dirty, out of place. And when she comes, she sees a world that is completely different from the one she lives in inside her apartment, as if it wasn't her apartment. It's something devoid of character because there's no one living in there anymore. This clean room is a drawing of a man, a woman, and a dog, and also a cockroach inside the wardrobe, which she kills, and then eventually she eats. But why does she eat this cockroach? That's a big question that we can pose in here. There are so many more things digging deeper into it. The thing is, the book's not about eating the cockroach, but it's about all of the fever dream that one can go through when we go through some sort of shock. The state that one gets in when they are tripping into a different sensation of reality, which could be reality itself. To be honest, what we live and what we do every day is something that we have created, right? I've reviewed here previously The Doors of Perception and Heaven and Hell by Aldous Huxley. He talks about the state of is-ness that one can have and perceiving things as they really are. Okay, so how can I perceive things as they really are? Usually we have this idea of concepts of things, right? And we put names into things. But how real these things really are? How real is identity? And in the case of Aldous Huxley, he's talking about psychedelics, but there are also many other things that can put you in such state by fasting. And then he mentions when many saints would fast and then they would see gods and they would see things very differently. Drugs that can be very harmful and have many other side effects that are not very good to a person. Alcohol, which is also very bad for your health. Meditation, a big shock. Here I have mentioned a few things that can put you in such state, but there are many that can put you into this state. You can read Aldous Huxley and he will tell you so. In here we have GH, going through the state of shock in which you detach your identity from yourself and you have to rediscover things around you, their perspectives and the way they perceive the world. And this is only if we talk about people in general, of the human being, but we also have everything else in nature, and all of these things speak of life in many different ways that we simply are not able to read because we don't have the capacity of reading some stuff, especially when we are stuck in our routine. Detaching the human from itself and delivering it back to the infinite possibility of things and situations can get a bit lost because we are what our identity and the things we resonate with construct. Well, what if we forget for a moment of all of the things we are and all of the things we think? Crazy, right? Are you able to do so? Are you able to undress yourself from everything that makes you what you are without losing yourself, being able to go back to it? And here we have heaven and hell. First, hell, when you lose yourself. She says, a alegria de perder-se é uma alegria de saber. Perder-se é achar-se perigoso. Eu estava experimentando naquele deserto o fogo das coisas, e era um fogo neutro. Eu estava vivendo da tessitura de que as coisas são feitas, e era um inferno aquele, porque naquele mundo que eu vivia não existe piedade nem esperança. And then we have heaven. Eu estava limpa de minha própria intoxicação de sentimentos. Limpa a ponto de entrar na vida divina, que era uma vida primária inteiramente sem graciosidade. Vida tão primária como se fosse um maná caindo do céu e que não tem gosto de nada. Maná é como uma chuva e não tem gosto. Sentir esse gosto do nada estava sendo minha danação e um meu alegre terror. In the state of is-ness, we undress the things and the way we name them to the things that they really are. So you shift from the state of how you assume things are to feeling how they are. In essence, in pure being. It's great to have an identity, and we need to have an identity. Identity makes us who we are, but at the same time, we might get so stuck in our identity, and it's hard to see from other points of view. And it's interesting when you can see from these different points of view, because you also find things about yourself, and also how we are much more than the things we consider ourselves being. But we have to get stuck with the part that we consider ourselves, because then it's too much for us to handle. But if you try sometimes to unglue your meat from your soul, how much more could you be? Because everything is just imagination until we are able to do them. So you need a concept, you need an idea to do things. How free are you? So freedom brings us some peace. But it also can make us feel lost. And that's why we need to glue ourselves back into our reality that is very small compared to the amount of possibilities of realities we have out there. This reminds me of the anime called Evangelion, an episode that the protagonist is wondering about who is he, what are things the author's ideas are based off Kierkegaard. He said he didn't understand anything, but of course he did because he put many things in there. The same way that Clarice said she doesn't understand anything about what she says. And in general, I feel like I'm talking about a lot of bullshit here myself, because how much of this does it really make sense to others? How much can I convey through the narrow space of language, Hesse would say? So there's a part in there that she talks about seeing God, thinking, can I see God? And in fact, we can see God. God are all things existing and everything around us, but we are just not able to read those things. And the patterns that we find in nature, in the patterns in which things grow, in the pattern that even history of humanity, which is something artificial we created, repeats itself. She says, havia eu pedido a coisa mais perigosa e proibida, arriscando a minha alma, teria eu ousadamente exigido ver Deus? E agora eu estava como diante dele e não entendia. Estava inutilmente de pé diante dele e era de novo diante do nada. A mim, como a todo mundo, me fora dado tudo, mas eu quisera mais. Quisera saber desse tudo. E vender a minha alma para saber. Mas agora eu entendia que não a vender ao demônio, mas muito mais perigosamente, a Deus, que me deixara ver. Pois ele sabia que eu não saberia ver o que visse. A explicação de um enigma é a repetição do enigma. O que és? E a resposta é, és. O que existes? E a resposta é, o que existes? Eu tinha a capacidade da pergunta, mas não a de ouvir a resposta. She's talking about how even if we are able to see things, some things are just uncommunicable. We cannot talk about them. Words are not enough. Words are not enough. Another thing that I want to talk about, and that Clarice talks about as well, which is language and the capacity of language. Incapacity of language and art. I always tell my friends that they should really learn another language, because learning language is amazing, and each new language you learn, it's as if you add something else to yourself, and that you can get to see yourself talking in ways that you couldn't in your native language. So when we learn another language, we are able to break yet another part of our identity that confines us in ourselves. But at the same time, that language helps us communicate more. For instance, if you learn more languages, you're able to communicate more stuff. It's still very limited compared to the amount of possibilities of things you can say, because they are infinite. So with language, there's a concept with Saussure that we have the signifier and the signified. And everything we see, we put names into it. But not always the names we put into it really convey what that thing is, because one thing can have a name but mean something different for me and something different for you. I might have an image for chair that is completely different from the image you have, and also all the feelings that I have associated to objects are completely different to the ones you have, even within one culture. Now imagine with all of the different cultures and languages, chance to see the infinite, it's even harder to explain what you saw and how you felt, and how is it not to be you while being inside of you. Minha voz é o modo como vou buscar a realidade. A realidade, antes de minha linguagem, existe como um pensamento que não se pensa, mas por fatalidade fui e sou impelida a precisar saber o que o pensamento pensa. A realidade antecede a voz que a procura, mas como a terra antecede a árvore, mas como o mundo antecede o homem, mas como o mar antecede a visão do mar, a vida antecede o amor. A matéria do corpo antecede o corpo, e por sua vez, a linguagem um dia terá antecedido a posse do silêncio. Eu tenho a medida que designo, e este é o esplendor de se ter uma linguagem. Mas eu tenho muito mais a medida que não consigo designar. A realidade é a matéria-prima. A linguagem é o modo como vou buscá-la. E como não acho. Mas é do buscar e não achar que nasce o que eu não conhecia, e que instantaneamente reconheço. A linguagem é o meu esforço humano. Por destino, tenho que ir buscar, e por destino, volto com as mãos vazias. Mas volto com o indizível. O indizível só me poderá ser dado através do fracasso de minha linguagem. Só quando falha a construção é que obtenho o que ela não conseguiu. So, the language is the way we try to explain, to conceive everything we see. But also in linguistics, we have this idea that we don't think in language, we don't think in our native language, but you can think in language, of course, when you try to put the pieces of language in your mind. But also, we think in concepts. There's no wonder that sometimes even in our native language, we are not able to say something. We lose the words for what we try to say. And language, the way we know, is actually something very recent to the history of humanity, and still portray things in different ways in between themselves, even if they come from the same root as Latin, which is something we can see with Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, Romanian. Going back to the language part, that things cannot be really communicated only through words. We can reach that a little bit further with art. And that's something that Clarice says here, something that Huxley says. And in Huxley, he mentions Goethe and also Blake talking about it. Apart from that, we also have Hermann Hesse in the Steppenwolf and also in his own private life. No wonder Clarice also painted. This is a painting by her. You see? Very modern. And Hesse painted as well. Some people think they just don't have that artistic thing in them, but it's because you never tried it and you never went further on it. And because they want to be perfect, they want to be very realistic with things. Sometimes you just don't have to paint things realistic. Sometimes it's just convey feeling, convey message, you know? It doesn't have to have a purpose. It's just a form of expression. Something that I really like that Hesse said about communicating things, communicating the incommunicable, communicating the communicable. When a writer receives praise or blame, when he arouses sympathy or is ridiculed, when he is loved or rejected, it is not on the strength of his thoughts and dreams as a whole, but only of that infinitesimal part which has been able to make its way through the narrow channel of language and the equally narrow channel of the reader's understanding. So we can reallocate here what Clarice said about the professor that couldn't understand it, and it's not lack of intelligence, but of feeling and being open to these new ways of putting the words together and understanding something. And well, getting back to the way how language is something very recent, and the cockroach has been walking the earth way before all of that happened. She seems to eat the cockroach out of knowing that the disgust she built against it is purely something built on taboo and the way our society sees things. But in the nature of human beings, we just eat the bodies of everything else to receive energy. And that's the species that we are. We prefer to change the name of the types of meat we consume to pork, to foie gras, or whatever you may, even the ones of plants. But it's a search to conceive the fact that we are eating bloody bodies of other organisms. It's to conceive the fact that we are consumers of everything that is around us. As a way to conclude her terror and her epiphanies caused by the cockroach, she eats it as in a position of power against her fears, against losing herself, also against her disgust. The passion. Why is it the passion according to her? It seems to me that it gives a message of how hating something is hating ourselves, and something completely self-destructive. But loving others is also loving ourselves. And we cannot escape from both. So yeah, that's my thought on why she consumes a fucking cockroach. It's something no one would ever imagine. So nowadays it's very popular to talk about great manifestation of free will. So yeah, that's her manifestation of free will, despite everything we believe, everything she believed, everything she is, the shock caused upon her by something very simple. And that can happen to us once in a while. And that was it. That was my review of The Passion According to GH by Clarice Lispector. That I would really love to mention is the fact that she starts the next chapter always with the last sentence, the one before. I like that so much. It's like as you always have to recollect. It's as if it's made to be read slowly, deliciously, savoring it bit by bit. Let that sink in, you know. And indeed, it's not a book made to be read once. It's a book made to read many times. And you don't even have to read it entirely. You read bits of it. And it's already great stimulus for days to come. I really recommend it. Yeah, I was meant to review this book last month, but so many things happened in my life in the meantime. I'm still deciding which book will be next. But in the meantime, if you want to leave a recommendation, or if you have anything to say about it, let me know. Thank you for watching this book review. Thank everyone for the comments that I've been receiving. I'm very glad, because I really like doing this. I really like reviewing books and so on. I just don't know about the time. I should leave them to be like, is it very long if I put 30 minutes? But I have so much to talk about also. Yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. Check the other videos if you have any interest in these other authors I've mentioned. And I hope to keep making more and more book reviews in the future. Have a great one, and see you on my next review.